Welcome to A Little Bit Radical, a business podcast from Standing on Giants. I'm Rob, your host. Join me as I meet people and organisations who are doing things differently, challenging the status quo and, yes, might just be a little bit radical. The world is waking up to refillable, or at least maybe it is. Certainly over the last 10 years, there's been a lot of noise about refillable products. You may have a local refill store, or maybe you've even spotted refill stations in your local supermarket. Ahead of this much-needed curve, though, was Phil Kalli, MD of FillRefill, a company making products for your home and body that work great and look cool, so you won't want to throw them away. This is sure to be a great conversation. Phil, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for having me on.
So, Phil, if you are a little bit radical and you're on our podcast, so we know you are, what do you think in your early life set you up for that?
It's a good question. I mean, my dad is a maverick in business and in life and in the way he does a lot of things. So I always grew up with a role model that didn't accept no. You know, I mean, just the idea that he started out manufacturing in an industry that was dominated by what are traditionally known as like big soapers. So he came up with a formulation for a laundry detergent that he kind of knocked together in the lab one day and presented it to his boss at the time because he had received an order from this laundry for 4 tons of what he called Kalli's Magic Mix. And his boss was like, no way, I'm not touching this. This is a horrible game. My dad set out kind of get into manufacturing. And I guess he's always given me that idea that you can do anything. Don't accept no as an answer. And so, I just grew up with him sort of giving me that confidence, I guess. So
fantastic. So your dad was a chemist doing these kind of formulations for laundry detergents and things like that. So was that the start of the products that you now sell at FillRefill?
The concept is there. I mean, it came to me that like a lot of the process of supplying in sort of large scale professional bulk, he was using a reuse system, he was using bulk containers, IBCs, 200 litre drums, and they were being returned to be refilled purely because it's cheaper to do it that way and it just makes sense. Even things like reclaimed pallets, they were always using reclaimed pallets because it was cheaper. It just occurred to me when I joined the business that we could be doing this for consumer products and, so much of everything back then was disposable. It is now, who am I kidding? But it was just if we could sort of use these logistics or these principles and then thinking more widely about refill and how it could be done. There was definitely the foundations of it all.
That's interesting. So in the trade, in his kind of business to business world, refill was the only way of doing things.
It wasn't the only way. It existed, but it wasn't sexy. It wasn't like, it wasn't celebrated. It was just like, this is how we're going to save money. We're not going to have to buy new packaging. I mean, there are all kinds of things that can be reappropriated, I think, for retail concepts from that model.
And when was he first running that business? Are we talking 70s, 80s?
When he came up with Kalli's Magic Mix, I would say it was the year that Rocky came out. I like to kind of equate his story with that. I would see him as a kind of Rocky Balboa character, he's been formulating ever since, really.
The story it reminds me of is the story of the local milkman or milk person, as we should refer to them now, or milk folk. We spoke to Guy Singh Watson from Riverford, and he was talking about how the milkman used to deliver fish and bread with refillable bottles and reusable packaging. And then that died out as consumerism really took hold throughout the 80s and early 90s. And now we're kind of coming back to something that we already had in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a lot of the solutions existed 100 years ago, I mean, even sort of local dairies were delivering milk in pails, that were being dropped off and collected and reused. And obviously then glass milk bottles came in and gradually we've evolved to Tetra Pak and plastic bottles in supermarkets and, with convenience being, the main goal. It's all about sort of revisiting solutions that existed in the past and seeing if they're viable. And we've done that with Phil. We're using the milkman model.
That's brilliant. I think we're going to come back in detail to packaging, reusable packaging and your business model. But let's go back to you. You haven't always worked for your father's business. You were doing something completely different before you took it over. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I guess kind of with the same idea in mind. So I don't like to be railroaded down any particular path. I've used this quote before, but I'm a big fan of Leonard Cohen, and you'll see behind me Bob Dylan. And I always like this quote that Leonard Cohen has, that his path was infinitely wide with no directions. It's all there for you if you want to try it out, and, you shouldn't let anything get in your way. And I mean, my love was music and painting, despite my dad buying me chemistry sets and trying to encourage me to go down that road. But he gave me the space to explore that. I went to art college, then did a degree in English literature with no real like plan of what I was going to be. So that's a great privilege to do something like that. I sort of did follow what I was interested in. I decided that I wanted to work for a music magazine and be a music journalist, or ended up being a photo editor for a music magazine. So I bluffed it into that position. Through friends of mine that I'd met at art college, I ended up managing one of my best friend's bands. They'd originally asked me to be the drummer, but I couldn't play the drums. But I was quite good at designing flyers and talking to people and getting them gigs, and I sort of evolved into the role of manager. It's quite a weird thing. Now, it's definitely something that I never envisaged myself doing. I'm certainly not classic manager type material. They're usually sort of quite tough guys, that handle the cash after gigs when you're starting out. So I had to step out of my comfort zone a few times, but that was cool. I learned a lot about business. I learned a lot about, I guess, building a brand. It's the same idea really with a band. You're trying to get other people to believe in what you do and try and mean something and say something. And, you're a small group of people going on tour, telling your story. And I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed being part of something like that. And I guess we had a product I was keen to tell people was good, and worthwhile. So I did that for a bit. Again, just kind of doing something because I enjoyed it and I believed in it. And then it came to a sort of natural conclusion. I had this opportunity to go and join my dad because he was getting on a bit and he wanted me to at least experience it. And it's an amazing opportunity when there's an existing business and someone says, come and see what you think, give it a go. And it was initially to redesign a website and to do a bit of marketing and just have a look at the business and get to know the people. But obviously it's become so much more than that. Whether they resent me or not, I've become quite integral, I guess, to the direction of the business now going forwards.
Thank you for sharing that story. I'd love to hear if you have any particular anecdotes of the music industry. It occurs to me that there's a similar kind of rocky story when you're trying to grow a band and get success and get signed, up against this big, scary, slimy music industry. Do you feel there's a similar story going on?
Yeah, definitely. It's great. Like, you're so naive. Looking back on it, we thought we were going to be, the Beatles. And it's beautiful, that naivety. Like, I still reminisce with my friend Mark, who's the lead singer of the band. I remember when John Kennedy played sort of debut single on XFM. That was the absolute pinnacle. We were jumping around my kitchen. I lived in a flat in Shepherd's Bush, and we were jumping around the kitchen, like, so excited with like visions that we were going to be, the next big thing, basically. And I kind of love that. I love that sort of excitement of feeling like you're on the cusp of something, and maybe that is actually more exciting than actually achieving anything. There's loads of stories of times when we thought we'd made it, we were about to make it, we had amazing opportunities, met some really lovely people and some not so lovely people, saw the sort of depressing underbelly of an industry. It was in such a big change because of the introduction of MySpace and decline in sales,
streaming revolution.
Sales. Yeah, streaming revolution, all of that kind of stuff. So it's a weird time to be involved, but also a great time. There's a lot of good bands, a lot of great music, and it was fun.
Is the music still around? Can we look up the band on Spotify and listen?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, of course you can. Yeah, you can look up the band. They were called Vincent Vincent and the Villains.
Great name.
Yeah. My friend Mark still makes music occasionally. He's got a band camp, and definitely worth looking out. I listen to it. I think he's a wonderful songwriter, although that isn't what he does now for a living, but he's got so much talent. So yeah, people should look him up. So yeah, on his own.
Brilliant. Well, enough about all this fancy pants music stuff. Let's get back to cleaning products and the hard reality of business. No, let's move to your little bit radical work now. So you came in to a business that was established, I'm going to guess a lot of reasonably old school kind of trade customers, and then you kind of transformed it into a consumer facing brand. Talk us through the early days of doing that as you came in with your dad, and give us a sense of the journey and what the challenges were.
I still face challenges. It's still very much a transition and a journey. It's one that I'm proud of. It's one that's caused me a lot of sleepless nights and stress. And many times I thought, what am I doing? It would have been easier perhaps to start something from scratch. It's not a big machine. You're trying to change something, trying to change a culture, and people that have been doing things a certain way and be doing them well, it needs to be explained to them the importance of why things needed to change. The first period was really just listening and observing and spending a lot of time with my dad and just trying to get an understanding of what we were doing and the way we were doing it. Just doing that takes a long time, and then try to reorganize and rebrand that the way it was, which was easier than changing it. and try and just introduce small ideas, small changes, little sort of behavioral shifts that sort of go in unnoticed. A lot of that was to do with just brand and brand perception and storytelling. Then it just sort of became clear to me that I just wasn't comfortable with all the things that we did and the way that we did them, and becomes more about sort of transformational change was required. Like, I'm not happy making this product or supplying this customer or doing this. And ultimately, you know, I'm going to be involved. And I had a lot of these conversations with my dad, was like, I can't be involved if we're doing this. Not that we were doing, you know, just like, these are old-fashioned formulations. There is better available. We can do better. We need to recruit more people that are kind of aligned with this way of thinking, and we need to basically not follow lead. And I do feel like we've done that over time. You know, it's been really difficult. You know, there's a lot of implications with cash flow and just keeping everyone in employment and keeping it running, and, you know, keeping everyone on board. You know, even now we still have to say, these are tough decisions, like stopping making certain products, stopping supplying certain people, because turning business down, we do a lot of that because it's not the right thing to do. But you also get great engagement internally when people realize, they start to respect you because your motivation isn't profit. I think integrity is really important, particularly in a family business. I wouldn't work for someone if I didn't respect them as a person, first and foremost. And I think we've done a lot of work to try and ensure that we have that. I'm not saying they've got to like us or think that we're wonderful, but I think you do have to trust someone's integrity and the reasons behind why they're running a business.
Absolutely. There's so much in there that stands out to me, and commonalities that you have with other guests that we've had on this podcast. So the idea of taking little steps, because a giant project, a giant mammoth is always going to be too much. So just looking for the little wins and slowly bringing about change through lots of little wins. I'd love to dig in more to what you were alluding to there about, like, you know, you weren't happy with the way in which certain things were done. So I'm guessing, reading between the lines, that was in kind of certain chemicals that were being used and certain packaging or whatever. So what did that look like? And then at what point did the kind of sustainability, ecological motivations come in for you? Were they always there from when you went in?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's everywhere. Every business can make changes all the time. There's still numerous changes that I want to make now. You know, it's about education. You know, you just don't know what the problems are when you first join a business. Yeah, packaging was a huge one. I mean, you know, you only needed to stand inside the factory. You basically look around and you're surrounded by packaging that, you know, wasn't coming back necessarily, you know, small pack stuff or even the 20-litre drums. And there wasn't really anyone doing a return closed loop model of actual making and supplying and bringing back drums. And, you know, everywhere you looked around, it looked like it was too difficult for people to do that, or they were finding workarounds, or they were offering recycling. That was huge. Yeah, chemistry is a big one because of the nature of supplying professional laundries. I mean, part of the industry standard was the supply of bleach, chlorine bleach, which I wasn't comfortable with. I know that it's necessary in certain scenarios in laundries, or certainly the perception is that it's necessary. I feel like unless you take a stand on something like that and actually cut it out, you'll never actively find a solution. So that was something that I've really pushed for. I'd say is pretty radical in our sector. I won't accept it. We're not going to be a supplier of that here. And, you know, I'll admit, probably 10 years ago, it might have been one of our top selling products. It's crazy.
That's a big change, going from best-selling products to we're not going to sell it.
Yeah, and you tell a bank manager that's what you're going to do and expect them to have any faith in you as a business person. But I think you're a person before you're a business person. And if you believe in something, you know, you have to be connected to what you do for a living, and you have to be comfortable with it. And perhaps it was easier for me because I came in as a non-chemist, as an outsider. And I was like, no, this isn't right. Things can be washed without chlorine bleach. You know, it might cost a little bit more, but actually, how do you measure cost, etc. Anyway, so loads of things like that. You know, there's all kinds of little details about ingredients or where things are coming from, or, you know, little small bits of packaging and waste generally, and just cultural changes in the factory itself that I've just tried to work on, and also bringing in people that share that passion. And that takes time. And then suddenly you've got critical mass in the business where you've got more people that care about that stuff, and then it becomes a cultural shift. But that, you know, that's got to be constantly on the agenda.
And then I imagine you have a situation now where the innovation and creativity in your business is focused around how can we make this product kinder to the planet, better for the suppliers, you know, source it from a responsible source, rather than how can we make this in high volumes at cheaper cost value so that we that kind of thing.
So we'd never have those conversations, and we'd probably be a much bigger business if we did. I mean, you make a really good point there. Bringing in talent and brains was absolutely vital. I mean, one of the things I recognized when I joined was I'm not a chemist. My dad was getting older and the innovation's got to come from somewhere. So I've made it a real priority to bring in smart people that were passionate about the same things I'm passionate about and that I knew would basically be the future of what we do. And we've spent a lot and put a lot into building a lab and putting some really lovely people in that you can trust to do what you want to do, basically.
Have you ever felt insecure not being a chemist, not having that subject matter expertise, running a company whose business is chemicals ultimately?
I shouldn't I?
Not necessarily. I'm just intrigued.
No, I haven't actually. I mean, I probably should. And I've stood up and given talks about chemistry. I mean, again, it goes back to that kind of confidence that my dad instilled in me and my ability. Like I'm not embarrassed about it. I know what my competencies are. I know what I am good at. And I think having integrity and asking the people that know better what they think and having that trust in them is as valuable as knowing it yourself. And I think the longer I am a managing director for, I realized that my role is less about doing, which is really difficult, and more about trusting other people and having faith in other people. It would be weird if I was the one formulating and making and researching. I'm interested in all of that. Yeah, I don't think it would be the most effective use of my time.
I think all our guests have a real natural curiosity. Even if they're never going to be an expert in something, they want to find out as much as they can about it, and know enough to do what they do. And it sounds like that's what you've done.
But there's so much to know about. You can't know everything about logistics and packaging and raw materials and accreditations, health and safety, and managing a factory is impossible.
Let's focus on your products now. How does a Phill product, say hand soap, in all of its various components compare to the market leading hand soap that you might buy at the supermarket?
Yeah. Okay. Gosh, I never want to talk any other brand or product down. So let's focus on what we do. Just the very principle that we won't offer a Phill product unless it can be returned for refill in some capacity. So either it's offered to a distributor, someone like our logistics partner in London, who is a company called Planet Minimal, amazing company. We will supply them in a closed loop in bulk IBC containers. They will then distribute to conscious businesses and zero waste stores, refill shops around London. So that's our hand soap going in bulk, being then refilled in store, and then the bulk containers come back to us and all the individual 20s come back to him. That's one way. Or we supply via Milk and More. So we will ship plastic free to them in glass bottles, in reused crates that are made from recycled plastic, paper banded, goes to their warehouse, which is now just moved to London actually. And then they deliver on electric vehicles, just like the milk, and then backhaul it to us and we wash the bottles. That's pretty unique. It's really important for us that everything is plastic free wherever possible. So we supply in a glass bottle, like hand soap would be in an amber screen printed glass bottle. It's at least 60% recycled cullets.
Oh, what's a cullet for a muggle like me?
That's just recycled glass, just bits that they, melt, turn into glass.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the most untechnical description you'll ever have of it.
I understand now. It's fine. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, so the glass is European. We won't get glass from further afield because of carbon footprint reasons. What else is different about it? So yeah, aluminium caps. Screen printing means no label waste. Easier for us to wash them. So Milk and More bottles get returned for, the rinse and return model, washed on our site. Then the products themselves. So everything is cruelty-free, certified by Leaping Bunny, vegan trademark approved. We are plastic-free inside, which is run by Plastic Soup Foundation, just to ensure there's no microplastics or polymers in any of the personal care products. Wherever possible, we use natural fragrances. Obviously, we ensure that all the fragrances that we do use are phthalate-free, paraben-free, endocrine disruptor-free, all of the buzzwords that everyone throws around. It's just going through every raw material and asking those questions of our suppliers, doing our own due diligence. So it has to be affordable. It's really key to us that we make a quality product that stands up against anything else. And I mean anything else. Like that is the test for us. We do not want to be putting out an inferior product. That's in terms of performance and quality and look and feel and everything. But then if there are small things where we can make an improvement, like a material we can make a shift, let's make it. And let's tell people why we've made it. So I feel like we are amongst the most transparent, if not the most. I mean, our goal is to be the most, because why wouldn't we be? So we will publish the ingredients. They're all available to download on our website, and we'll explain what they are, what they're called, why they're in there. And then we welcome that dialogue. And we do often have that dialogue with consumers, with experts, with people that challenge us. And, you know, if people challenge us and we think they're right, they've got a good point, then cool, you know, we'll change it. We're not in the business of like trying to get away with something. I want people to understand that mentality. Like, we're making a product that is used by people, that is a product that I want to use. Now, if someone tells me that I shouldn't be using it, or they think that we could make it better, then why wouldn't we make it better? Because I always believe that if you make the best product you can, there's a market for it. When I say the best product we can, it's the best in every sense. It's like, it's got to look cool, I think, because people got to want it.
We're talking hand soap. How many times do you go around to someone's house and someone comes back from the toilet and they're like, oh, we got really nice hand soap. Yeah.
But also, if you use a really awful, like, you know, those old pink pearlized hand soaps that used to exist, like the smell of, like, I don't know if you had it in school or something, you know, that bright pink one.
Oh, yeah. Remember it well. That had the grains in it. It felt like it had sand in it or whatever. Yeah,
I mean, that's horrible, you know. And there are some pretty nasty ones out there. Like, I'm quite particular about fragrance. We went with this fig leaf fragrance because it's totally narcissistic, but it's a fragrance that I've loved since I was a child, because my Greek grandmother had like a fig tree in the back garden of her house in Nicosia. It's just a fragrance I associate with being in Cyprus, and I just love it. It's my favorite.
I'm really struck, Phil, by how much detail you and your team have gone into with every single aspect of this product. And I know you didn't want to get into comparing yourselves to Big Soap or whoever, but it just strikes me that those conversations won't being had in the halls of one of those companies. It will all be around, we found a product that's 3% cheaper, which means that we can increase our margin by this, and we found enough supply in wherever in the world that comes from. You know, it just sounds like they're having a very different conversation.
No, it's difficult to say. I mean, I hope not. I mean, I don't think that there are bad people. You know, I think there are companies that could do better, that probably have shareholders and people that they have to satisfy, and that's usually where compromises are made, and it usually is about compromise. But I don't think that people working at these companies are essentially like evil. And I'm really adamant that we focus on what we do. Other people can be influenced by what we do. Great. You know, if it raises the standard overall, great. We're going to be influenced by other people too. There are people doing really cool stuff. There's been some amazing innovations in personal care, in cleaning in the last few years. And hopefully we're part of that wave. Again, it's like bands, right? There are cool bands that influence other bands. Doesn't mean that one band is better than the other. It's just there are bands for different people. And I feel like there are brands for different people. If we resonate with someone because of our message overall, which is single use is over, and they trust us to come on that journey, maybe they'll like our second fragrance, like they'll like someone's second album better than their first. But if they can come with us on that, that's really cool. And I try to do that in the way that we talk about the brand as well. Like, come on that journey with us and trust us as a group of people, because we're going to try and find out how to do this thing that we're doing too. And we're a lot better now than we were a year ago because of the people that have joined us. And I know we'll be even better next year. And that's exciting for me. That's what keeps it cool, you know?
Absolutely. Well, you're right. And I'm actually inspired by your optimism and belief in people, rather than letting a little bit of cynicism creep in from me. And we should talk about some of the wonderful things that some of the very big players are doing. When I was researching the refillable landscape for this interview, Unilever, can't get bigger than that, are really pioneering their products to be refillable in a store, you know. So it seems to me like actually there is some good investment here. And can you see a world in our lifetime where all products are refillable?
Yeah, I do. I don't think there's a choice, really. We've got to that point where it just can't go on. It's all about kind of stigmatizing single use, which is why we have this single use is over campaign, and it has to be the next taboo. I'm not saying we should vilify people. I know there is a place for single use in medical, you know, and I'm sure there's a lot of places where it is, you know, it's hard to find.
Windows is the one I heard the other day. Actually, if you're going to use single-use plastic, UPVC windows is a good place to use it because you want it to last 100 years, you know. Yeah. So fair enough.
That's a pretty significant. That's a pretty significant use. Yeah.
Yeah, single, very long use. That would be the
I think that's different. But there's a lot of like good brains working on solutions. You know, the motivation is there now. And there couldn't be stronger motivation than the one that we all have, which is a safer place for everyone.
I want to take you back to the transparency and your radical transparency. I saw on your website that you actually offer your customers the chance to buy the raw ingredients to make the products. So that seems very connected. It makes a lot of sense now that you've talked about the transparency of your formulations and all that.
Yes, and it's really popular, actually. I have to be honest about that. It's very much consumer-led. So people came to us and asked,
really?
Because we had this model of closed loops bulk supply and we were already delivering goods that they knew contained these materials. We had a few zero waste stores that asked us the question, would you be able to supply, X raw material bicarb, for example, in bulk? And what's the price? And if you can do that, we would take it from you. So there was an element of that. And I deliberated over it a long time and we discussed it internally. It's not really what we do. Is it cannibalizing our existing business? Is it the right thing to do? Can it be done responsibly? Are people going to misuse the ingredients? There's loads of things. Does it need to be branded? There's so many things to think about. And there are a few companies that do it now, like us. The thing that I liked was there are some people, they really want to buy the bare minimum. And why shouldn't they? They want to know exactly what they're using. The less materials you've got, the more control you have over that in your own home. And I like this idea of creating like an artist's palette. Basically, you could buy as few ingredients or products as possible. And the idea is that they interlink. So you could buy washing up liquid, which is obviously a built product, but you could also mix it with bicarb and make your own hob scrub. Instead of buying a separate hob scrub and a kitchen clean and a wash up and all these other things that we're sold all the time, loudly with bright packaging usually, or really annoying infomercials, the kind of thing. And then we had fun. So we started playing around with things and I like to try things out at home. So a lot of the recipes that we have published are all generated by our customers or by us, just messing about with things, cleaning things in the lab. And we discovered some really cool ways to clean things that we didn't know before. And it's extended the life of our product. It's a bit like WD-40, it's all sort of crowdsourced info, give us all the reasons how you can use this. The good example is we made this product called Scrub Powder. It's basically a cream cleaner. I bet you didn't think you'd be talking about this on the...
It's what I hoped for, Phil, if I'm honest.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
This is going exactly the way I wanted.
I'm embarrassed.
It's brilliant.
I'm embarrassed to be so enthusiastic about.
No, tell me. I'm just about to clean my shower in my new house, and it's disgusting. So tell me that.
This is exactly what you need. So basically, it was the idea that refilling a cream cleaner is a nightmare. It's a really difficult product. It's thick, it's messy, and it's got a lot of water in it. So we thought, could you just strip it down to a very basic powder? And we stumbled across a formulation, was made in the lab and sent out to me and a couple of other people. And we decided to put a nice fragrance in it. And it was just like, this stuff is amazing. Why doesn't it exist? It was like Vim, but Vim, has chlorine bleach in it. I mean, it works great, but it's not a very nice product to be putting down your sink. And it's become like a really versatile cult product. If I go onto Instagram on any day, I'll find a little video that we haven't commissioned. It's really important that we haven't commissioned of someone using it to clean like their bathroom tiles or, an oven pan or unknown things that people clean. And then they start raving about how much they love it. And that's really exciting and satisfying to know that you've created something that kind of then takes on a life of its own.
Absolutely. That sounds fantastic. As much as I'd love to talk about cleaning products all afternoon, it's genuinely very top of mind at the moment.
Anytime, Rob, honestly.
Let's turn to a little bit radical world now and taking you out of your day-to-day. What little bit radical change in the world would you like to see?
Oh my gosh. Apart from political change.
You can have political change.
Yeah. I think that's essential right now. I think our politics are quite obvious. I mean, to make single use a thing of the past has to be the main thing that we're focused on. It's what the whole reason that we established the brand.
I'm going to pick up on the two things you said, which is making single use a thing of the past and political change. Whichever side of the fence that political change lands, do you think that governments need to be doing more to support the transition to
100%.
reusable?
100%. I mean, we've seen the implementation of the plastic tax and obviously extended producer responsibility has made an impact, but not anywhere near the impact that it should have, because it should have been way more drastic than it has been. Similarly, I don't feel like a business like us, a small business that's tried to demonstrate how change can be made, has had opportunity to receive funding. I mean, we haven't looked for it significantly, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot available to us considering our size and what we've tried to take on. We're now distributed through one of the major suppliers in the UK, which is Milk and More, but we've had to do that all ourselves, with our own investment. Yeah, it's difficult. And when there's not, a precedent, it's all been learning as we go, and that's expensive. And obviously other bigger brands and bigger models will come and take that on, take it further, which is fine, But yeah, I mean, I'm proud of that. I'm proud that we've kind of been at the forefront of that, where it's been hard. I mean, we've got 30 people in the whole business, making, formulating, doing the marketing, doing the design, running the website. It's a lot.
Thank you for sharing that, Phill. And I don't think you'd find many people who disagree. Certainly not me as well. I'm signed up. I think that would be a fantastic thing that the existing government or whichever government we may have in the future could be doing. So we're at the end of our conversation now. And the last question is always the same, which is if there's someone listening who has a little bit of a radical idea for their work, for a business, for their life, what would your advice be to them to get started?
There's really no reason not to. I'm lucky I'm in a position now where I do get quite a few people who are starting businesses who, for some reason, think Phill is a great success story. I soon put that straight. And it's inspiring because there are people working on some really cool stuff. It's easy to get stuck in a tunnel where you don't reach out, where you don't seek help or collaborate. And I feel like I was maybe like that at the start. Like, this is my idea. It's top secret. Can't talk to anyone about it. Completely changed on that now. Now, the most rewarding things that have come about in the last sort of 5-10 years have all been through collaboration. It's really fun sharing ideas and getting excited about stuff with other companies, other people. So yeah, I think it is just be fearless in terms of asking for help, reaching out, and like good businesses, good people that really care about what they do will help you. I've had a couple of emails this morning, people asking me for like recommendations of packaging, asking questions about how I did certain things, like people asking me about funding sources. I like that kind of stuff. Like, I can't let it take over everything I do, otherwise I wouldn't do anything else. But I like the idea of being approachable. And these people are way smarter than I was because they're already doing it. They're already asking, they're already looking around things that they think are cool and are asking about them. So I think there was a bit of advice in there somewhere.
A lot of people have shared a similar position to you did, actually, which is that at the start, they felt that their idea had a huge amount of value and would be stolen. But there's quite an old saying, which is that ideas are cheap, execution is everything. And you need other people to help you execute on your ideas, don't you?
Absolutely, yeah. And forget about your ego. That's a struggle for every business owner and everyone that works, really. We've encountered that where we felt that things that we've done or ideas that we've had have been replicated by other brands. But do you know what? You've got to forget about that. It's exactly what you say. Like, if they do it better, then all power to them. You've got to do what you do better. That's what you should be focused on.
Thank you very much, Phill. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us, and I hope to speak to you again soon. Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it, please follow us on your podcast platform. If you'd like to appear on A Little Bit Radical or have an idea of someone we should speak to, please email podcast@standingongiants.com or get in touch with me on LinkedIn. You can search Rob Fawkes or search Standing on Giants and you'll find me there. Thank you very much and speak to you next time.